Welcome to the Be Battle Ready podcast, where we take a deep dive into what it takes to be battle ready in your lifestyle so that you can go to war on your life and the marketplace and win.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Be Battle Ready podcast and live series. I'm on with Adam Jones. He's a ex-company commander and Black Hawk pilot, and I thought that he would have some amazing value to give to us today about, what does it mean to be battle ready and how to run a battle ready business, applying the principles that he learned in his experience in the military and applying that into business, which he is in now and consulting with businesses. He's currently a team leadership consultant and has his own movement called Mountain Movers. And I'll let him dive into that a little bit more and explain that in depth. So welcome.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, Anthony. Good to talk to everyone on here. I know we're not talking, face-to-face or in person, but at the same time, this is a conversation. So it's good to be with you. I'm excited to take some of what I learned as a commander and as a Black Hawk pilot and just release that to you. I think what I realized is growing up in the military, my whole life I've been doing military. I was 12 years old flying planes for what's called the Civil Air Patrol. So military has been my life, right? And I've gone through a transition getting out, but also I just kind of realized, most people who want to serve, they don't get to serve. Whether there's a disqualifying feature or some kind of medical condition, there's always something, right? They don't even get the opportunity for those who want to. Also, most people don't even want to. And then for those who did and got to serve, most of them don't be able to become officers. And then after that, they don't get to fly. So I just kind of realized, man, there's a unique experience here as a Black Hawk pilot that I can start releasing and providing to you all so that you don't have to go do what I did to learn the lessons and take 10 years out of your life to learn these lessons, even though I'm sure it would be great for you. And, it's always better learning by doing. I always say the learning is in the climb. It's not in preparing to climb a mountain. It's climbing the mountain. However, I think today we'll add some value to you and give you some things that you can really take away and just run with right away.
Awesome. Obviously, we're getting to know each other a little bit deeper on this podcast, but that's so amazing that you had the opportunity early on to be exposed to being a pilot early on, because not many people do, as you said. But give us a little bit of your background. What got you? You're in a military family. Like, what was the purpose behind you getting into the military? And where did you see yourself going? Did you know you're going to become a company commander and Black Hawk pilot and all that stuff? Or tell me a little more about that part.
Yeah, it's amazing. The type of people you serve with. I think sometimes people have a mindset when people join the military, it was like all they had or that was their last option. I've heard that at least and seen it. But most of the people I've been around, they've been, high performers their whole life. And they just wanted to give back more and they wanted to serve. And to be honest, that's just kind of my story, not the high performer piece. I would never claim that. But what I would claim is I always just wanted to serve. I wanted that opportunity to see what is it like to take all of my agenda off the line and say, look, whatever I want to do is not as important as what the nation needs to do. I'm going to go do what they need me to do, right? And see what experiences, come available. So that's been a huge piece. And yeah, since I was 12, I was doing military things and learning how to fly. Obviously, I'm a kid at that point, but that just gave me a taste of what would it be like. And, understanding that we all have leadership traits and we have leadership characteristics, but we're not put in environments that really allow it to grow, right? If we took a plant that grows really well, for example, in Arizona, and we threw it in Pennsylvania, would it do the same thing? Probably not, right? And I don't want to give a specific example, but your environment really does matter. So one advantage to get in the military is you are now put in an environment that is going to force you to grow. So that was a big piece of that. And I would just share that, yeah, I always wanted to serve. Yes, I always wanted to be a Black Hawk pilot. It's the funniest thing, but the movie Black Hawk Down is the one that made me want to do that. You know, I'm watching Black Hawk Down. I'm like, I want to fly Blackhawks one day. And my mom looks at me like, why would you say that after you just saw one crash? You know, it's like, I'm not seeing the crash. I'm seeing the opportunity. You know, I'm seeing the flight, not the crash. Like, I get it. We all, you know, crash sometimes and we all have failure. You know, I heard your podcast on failure. But at the same time, you got to give yourself that chance. So, yeah, that was always a big piece of it. And the only reason I chose the Army is the Army had the most helicopters. The Army had the most aircraft in general, which people would not guess. So, yeah.
Yeah, I look back. I mean, I remember it was either spring of 2000, I think it might have been, when I was sitting in Naval recruiting office and I was trying to make this decision. Do I, you know, postpone going to college and play football or, you know, join? And then, man, I look back from here, you know, almost being 20 years ago, pretty much 20 years ago, and how much has changed and what would have happened after that. Cause that was before 9/11 and, you know, it always appealed to me. I love the brotherhood of it. I love the structure of it. It was probably something that, you know, you don't know what would happen, but I know that it would be hugely beneficial for me at a young age. Cause, you know, within a year, my dad had passed. And, you know, now I'm like a 20-year-old man with no guidance, right? With no father figure, no grandfathers, nothing. So that would have been a great, you know, I look back at that and seen how that is, but I also look back and be like, I see a lot of people coming back and, you know, the problems that they've experienced and the demons they have to face. So, yeah. Well, awesome. Let's segue into really talking about, as you know, title of the podcast is Battle Ready, Be Battle Ready. You know, I run a coaching consulting business where, you know, it's called Battle Ready Business. And I get asked all the time, were you in the military? I said, no, I'm not. I don't know. Like, you know, I know that how I was taught, you know, a football program I went to, high level football program when I was in high school. They kind of ran things paramilitary and it was very structured, very organized and, you know, all that stuff. But for some reason, this has always stuck with me of like, you know, when there's a mission to take down, like, how do you get it done? Like, that's the first thing that, you know, in my mind, I started envisioning the steps and what we need to do to get done. Who do we need? And how do we put all these pieces together? And I think, if anything, my thesis around this is that the military and even in the higher level, like more specialized forces, AKA like being a Black Hawk pilot or anything else, like pilot, special forces, anything like that, they have a lot of lessons that business owners can learn, especially small business owners can learn, because they run with small cross-functional teams. And, you know, a lot of that can apply. And, you know, they have to run lean, they have to run efficient and all that stuff. So a lot of that can apply to running a business. And I want to bring more of that out of, because we obviously have we have the best military and the best training in the world, probably in the history of the world. And we can learn a lot from the military on that.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm with you. You know, there's a lot that we learn about being mission minded. I think that's what comes to mind for me as you and I are talking is really aligning around a mission. And what happens actually, because something I do is, you know, my clients, some of them are ex-military members, and they're fighting the struggle of figuring out, man, who am I now that I don't have my uniform anymore, right? And it's because they never really said goodbye to the season. They never put on a new uniform. And most importantly, what happens is, you know, they start drifting through life. And they're drifting and they're, you know, just wondering, man, what has happened to me? And family members see it even worse. What we're seeing in our mind isn't even as bad as what others are seeing. And what can happen is you say, well, I lost my motivation. And it's not, it's actually more simple than that. Sometimes it sounds so intimidating. How do I get my motivation back? You will find all the motivation you need if your mission is big enough. And I'm not saying it from a corporate setting or just a business, like just have a good company mission and everyone will drive towards it. No, like you need to find something that is so burning to you that sleep is not as important, that leisure is less important than legacy, right? It just, and the military forces it on you. Hey, here's your mission. Like I served for 10 years. Here's your mission for these 10 years. That's going to change too. Here's your mission for the day. Here's your mission for the month. they're just giving you constant missions, and then you take that mission. And as a company commander, all we do is we receive, a high level situation and a mission, and a why behind that, an intent, and we create a whole plan after that, right? A whole plan that trickles down to all of our soldiers. I was in charge of 54 soldiers, goes down to all of them, and we have to execute and give our own intent that aligns to a higher mission. So it really is all about starting with the mission. And then when you have a mission and a clear intent, a clear why, look, here's the reason we're doing this. Here's why it matters.
Yeah.
Then you get that sense within the team of, all right, this is going to suck. I know this is going to be hard. I know that I'm not going to enjoy this. I know I'm going to have to leave my family for a while, but I believe in the mission and I believe in that why. And even if I'm not in full agreement, that's not up for me to decide. I have to agree. I signed the dotted line, right? And it's not just I guess what I'm saying is all of us at one point sign a dotted line. And I did want to share this, Anthony. Everyone on here, whether you served or not, if your focus is to protect and defend and increase freedom for others, you're serving in a different way. You're just on a different battleground. You have a different area of operation than someone does who puts on a military uniform. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're in the time of COVID, and be what you want to say where this came from and what it is. I personally think we're in a different type of war right now. And, it's more of how can we be hurt economically? How can we be hurt politically? And, realizing how much of a strategic advantage our economic, power is and how much weight that has in the world. And, we want to demonize, a lot of people want to demonize our industry, but, we realize without our industry, we don't have our military without that. So, we are all in this together. So.
Yeah, man. One thing that you're saying right now, man, that I want to hit on is this lack of communication and connection from this new war. Because you're right. I look at it the same way, man. We are preparing for war. We are in a war. We're in a war for our minds right now. Everything is trying to take your attention. Everything is trying to take your attention away from what matters most, what's actually going to live on past you. As a believer, I believe there are things that are going to live on past me. And there are things that I can take with me. And I can, in my case, I'm focused on going to heaven, right? I'm focused on helping other people and helping them in their faith. And you know who I can take with me? Them. You know what I can't take with me? Pretty much everything else I see. So it really do need to figure out what matters most to you. And that's not, you don't have to have the same views. No one here does, but I just want you to think about that, because what's happening with the mask, this is where this is coming out to me, man. I hope you don't mind me sharing, but when you look at what the mask is doing to us, I wear it because I'm going to comply. I'm going to help out. I'm not going to be a problem in someone else's life. So I'm going to wear that. Okay. And the way I look at it is there's all new levels of judgment and hatred because of it. And if you ever thought about this, your mask, because one thing I teach is communication for teams. So I just want you to think about the mask for a second. It's holding your mouth closed. And what you don't know what's happening on in the background is you're keeping your mouth closed more than you used to. You're not smiling as much. You're not nodding. You don't even know your boundary of, does this person want to say hi to me because I can't read their face?
Yeah.
Or do they want me to stay away from them and they're afraid of me? Or do they think I don't want to be around them? And what I'm challenging my clients to do is just say hi. No matter what, say hi. Open your mouth, force your mouth open, recognize what's happening right now is forcing you to close your mouth. So it's winning a war against you. And instead choose the opposite and just force yourself now instead of this, because this doesn't look good with a mask on. Just be like, hey, how you doing? And you'll see if someone's friendly. And more than anything, you'll just be a light to the people around you.
Yeah, 100%. I want to back up to what you said about purpose, because, even the mission, right? Because this is something that, is something that I teach is establishing the mission. And within, if it's within your playbook, establish the purpose, right? Tell them the why, it doesn't matter if it's you're just going to be implementing a new policy and procedure or a system, or if you're going to be launching a new campaign, your quarter, or whatever it might be. Tell tell me more about that with your planning when you go in, when you're going planning missions and doing all that, and briefing your team of how to getting them on the board. Like I'd love to know more about that. I'd love you to give us more about taking those 54 people and getting them to work together.
Yeah, that is so huge. So I will say one of the only reasons for any bit of success I would have had as a company commander is because I would slow down to build relationships, right? And if we just look at other successful leaders, you usually notice they slow down and they build relationships with a core few people who's going to carry the most influence, because position does not mean you have leadership. That's something people confuse, right? In the military, well, I have this position, so I have leadership. No, you have that position. In order to gain leadership, you got to gain influence. And what happens is you're getting shuffled around all the time. So you're with a whole new group who doesn't care about your background and where you were in the past. You got to gain new influence. So one thing that's really important, that you're mentioning, Anthony, would be developing buy-in, right? You got to develop buy-in, especially on the big tasks, the big missions that it's going to be harder to move the ball, harder to get it going. Because once we have momentum, it's easy to keep it going, right? Momentum is a leader's best friend. But if you don't have momentum, you better slow down and get buy-in. And there was a point where I was assigned the responsibility as a maintenance company commander to repackage all of our maintenance equipment. This is tens of millions of dollars. And we had to repackage things, repurpose them for different types of missions so we could be more flexible based on a current setting of a threat. Okay. In order to do that, I had so much resistance initially. Like, no way, we're not doing that, sir. That's stupid. We tried that before. And see, now some people look at that as, well, that was disrespectful. Say that to a commander or, I was a captain. No, it's not. We allow for that. We want to have this discussion. Once a decision's made, well, then we're not going to keep saying this is stupid. Why are we doing this? No, we're all going to back up the decision. That is so important. But you better allow for disagreement initially. Allow for discussion. So that's how I kind of ran the company. Was we had this in this example, we had this mission. People didn't want to do it. They tried for years to make it happen. They said it wasn't going to work. And what needed to happen was slow down, build relationships, and build buy-in. And that means one-on-one conversations, not, hey, let me get the 5 guys together, the five men and women, my key soldiers, key leaders together, and break down for them what's going on. That's actually too much already. I want one-on-one with the most influential people and let them know, hey, look, I know you think this is dumb. I get it. But do you know why we're doing it? And I wish I could tell everyone why we did what we did on this podcast, but I am not doing that. But, hey, do you know why we did that? Right? And people were like, oh, well, I wasn't aware of that. See, because you got to assume in a world that is filled where we have to communicate and we have to connect, not everyone's getting the same message. I receive a different message from someone else than that person did. So this person's going, well, this is stupid. It's going to, slow us down. And I'm being told, we don't care if we slow down. This is more important. So building buy-in is the absolute most important, deadly weapon that you can have as a leader. Because when you got buy-in, what will happen, at least for me, was people are like, this is stupid. The commander's doing this, and that's not okay once it gets down to that level. But guess what happened? Those people that I built relationships with, they go, no, this is actually a really good move. Here's why he's doing this, and we will comply and we'll back him up.
Yeah. I mean, what I think one of the biggest things is what I heard you say is allowing them to, share their side of it, right? And a lot of times we're coming at it from, we think that leadership is this authoritarian, do as I say type of structure or relationship. But when in reality, it's all about, you have to create that relationship by hearing the other person. So.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, awesome. So company, like if, you said company commander, and I don't know if anybody, most people don't understand the terminology in there. Could you explain the structure of that, right? Of what a company is inside of the military, and then what's underneath that, and how does that all make up and fit in the big picture, and the importance of that structure, in your mind?
Yeah, so I'll go up to the company level. So when you look at how the military is organized, we purposely, especially in the Army, we have it to where you're really only leading direct reports. So, we use this term, in corporate America, who's your direct reports. Okay. So in the military, it's the same thing. It's just said differently. But our direct reports are always going to be about 5 people or so, usually never more than 9. Why? Because then from there, we're going to have other levels within the organization. So in this case, you have fire teams. And in a fire team, you have team leaders who are going to run probably about 4 to 5 people, maybe 6 or so. Okay. From that, you'll have 2 fire teams that make up 1 squad. So now think about it. We just add those numbers up. You have your teams that became a squad. A squad's going to be about 12 people or so, give or take. And you'll have multiple squads to make up a platoon. A platoon would be led by a lieutenant and a high-ranking sergeant. Okay, so it's this great combination of a platoon sergeant and a platoon leader. And what's funny is people are like, well, man, the platoon sergeant has so much more experience than the platoon leader. And I want to address this here because I think this might add some value to people. A platoon leader is a trained officer who maybe has past experience in the military. You never know. But they're college educated, and that's usually how they get stamped, is you're just a college educated guy who has to, a guy or girl has to make decisions. But there's a reason for it. There's all this experience going on over in the sergeant's side, usually about 20 years of experience. And then you get this new officer who maybe has 5 years of experience. However, that officer is responsible for everything the platoon does or doesn't do. And that's really important because you have this great balance, almost a dichotomy of how we're going to make our decisions, right? We're going to have some risk adverse side of it. We're also going to have some people who really understand what it looks like on the ground level to get everything done. So anyways, you have lieutenants who lead platoons, and then multiple platoons make up a company. So I had 3 platoons underneath my command. Once you get up to company commander, you be a captain or higher. And what happens for that level of the military is that is really where everything stops, right? That is where the final approvals are coming through. That is where disciplinary actions are being taken on a more serious level, more permanent level to someone's military career if needed. I know that's something that people always emphasize is once you get to the company level, it's not a good thing because now it's going to be a bigger punishment. It's going to be more discipline. You might have just ruined your whole military career because it got to that level. It just depends. So those are some things that come to mind, but here's what I'll say. My job was one thing, and I can summarize it in 3 words, and then I can summarize it into this final statement. Okay, it is organizing, training, and equipping. Those are the 3 words. So everything I did was about organizing, training, and equipping those soldiers. Every decision was through that filter. If it did not involve organizing, training, or equipping, I'm not doing it. I'm going to have someone else do this type of work because they're not skilled in this area. They're not trained in this area to organize, train, and equip. So you got to recognize those things. And then the last piece was, like I said, to summarize it all, it's just being a representative. Leaders, we're representatives for our people, and we got to be willing to get in the fight for them and back them up when they need it most. And what happens is a lot of people break their relationships with their influence because they don't take the hit when they should have. Instead, they just want to look good and they're not willing to look bad. You got to be willing to look bad to be a good leader.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, how do you, organize, train, and equip? Like how have you, or how do you see, a small business leader, really applying those principles to their business?
Yeah, I think once you figure out a unifying mission, you can now break it down to even before that, you can have strategic initiatives. So corporate talk, but you could have strategic initiatives, which are these are the things we must accomplish throughout the course of our business, right? So one example of a strategic initiative could have to do with just your branding in general, right? You want to make sure that you are increasing your brand awareness, you're getting your message out. That is a strategic initiative that you can break down a lot of projects and tasks within that. So that would be an example of that. In the military, as a company commander, you're given, in my case, I think I was given 5, they're called mission essential tasks. My guys had to be amazing at those 5 things. These are the 5 things that make up this type of unit. So I was aircraft maintenance. I know you said you're going to be interviewing a special forces guy. You're going to see on the company command level, that company commander had METL tasks, mission essential tasks, and the L is list, mission essential task list, that he took that, or she took that, and broke it all down into executable training on a small level. So one thing might be, we need to be able to respond to downed aircraft. Okay, that's one very, very high level. Okay, what's all the things I need to do with my soldiers or with a corporation to make sure that you can respond to a downed aircraft scenario with like the utmost excellence? Well, we got to train on our vehicles. We got to be, trained on all of our weapons, right? We got to practice different scenarios in the mountains. We got to practice scenarios in high trafficked areas as well. And you start breaking all this down to see, wow, there's probably like 30 subtasks within that strategic task, or in this case, the mission essential task. So that's kind of how that works. And you just got to start from that high level and then figure out what needs to happen in order to make it happen. And I think that's really key. And the best way to do that is by just starting, taking action, and then assigning other people to take responsibility. I think I had a history where I would come in with certain military units, and they weren't the high performers initially. Okay, and I would say that's not because of me that all of a sudden they're better. It's unifying a team. Well, it's really uniting a team, right? And I just would say that when we did that, when we united a team around this similar purpose, we got people in the right seats, all of a sudden performance changed. And it's just important to note that you have to assign ownership. You have to assign ownership. So how I broke all that down, now imagine assigning ownership, not saying, well, I'm the commander, so I'm going to be responsible for running all those trainings. No way. Not at all. I might do like one or two of those. We're going to start equipping new people, the up and coming leaders, to be able to take on this responsibility by putting them in the seat.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about buy-in, and when, you show people trust and belief in them and responsibility, generally, if they're the right people, then they'll step up and take ownership of it. When they're given ownership of it, you'll get even more buy-in. So, awesome, man. Let's pivot to, really talking about what you're up to now, and kind of give us an idea of that, like who you're working with. I know that you have two things going on. You deal some consulting with project management and that, but also you have your own kind of thing called Mountain Movers, right? And you're saying you're pivoting that towards, ex-military and working with them. So tell me about those things that you're working with, so we can start understanding like how you're applying this in business.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to free anyone on here of feeling stuck for a second. If you feel stuck, just go find a problem and solve it. That's simple. What gets a lot of people out of their seats during COVID? Seeing problems and knowing, well, I'm seeing it, maybe others aren't. I should probably go solve it, right? Or I should take it on as my responsibility to figure out how to solve it. So that's how Mountain Movers was formed. It was just about realizing that people had mental mountains in their life that were stopping them from becoming the leaders they were created to be. And we need to move these blockages in order for someone to really start seeing the problems that are all around them, right? So in this case, if you had a 14,000-foot mountain in your view, and there were 10,000-foot mountains behind it, and your problem was the 14,000-foot mountain, you can't even see anyone else's because you're so focused on yourself. Yeah. So the focus is really on helping people take their eyes off of themselves. What I teach is that fear falls when we focus on others. Okay, when you focus on someone else, your fear will leave you, especially if that person drives you. You will no longer have fear. You will no longer feel like, well, I'm lazy, or I'm tired, or I'm scared of that, or, that's really out of my comfort zone. Once you know someone needs you, you'll move your mountain. So that's how that formed. And, as I transitioned out of the military, now I'm in what's called the inactive reserves. So I could get called up and, I'd be happy to do so. But right now, I'm living the civilian life. And I realized as I did that, who am I without my uniform? There's no other way to say it. It's just all of a sudden you start realizing, man, I don't have my uniform anymore. I'm not flying Blackhawks anymore. I'm not a commander anymore. So was I ever a commander? Was I ever a Blackhawk pilot? Or was that what I did?
Yeah.
That's what I'm helping people discover now is really, who are you and who were you? You were never a Blackhawk pilot. You flew Blackhawks, right? You were never infantry, or I'm an infantry officer. Well, what happens when you're not an infantry officer anymore? Are you still one? So that's my discussion with people. Some people like to fight that, but what I would say is, when it's over, are you still that? What you are shouldn't be able to change. It should go with you forever. So it's really what you're doing, or something you're serving in or helping. So that's where helping ex-veterans really master their transition, guide them to help them figure out their true mission so they get their motivation back, and talk about these things that the military provided us that we lost. So think about this. You gain your freedom, but you lost things you weren't expecting to lose. You thought you were going to gain everything. You gained your freedom back. You're not in the military anymore. You don't have to shave. That's what people talk about. I don't have to shave. And it's like, look, here I am. I'm still shaving, because I tried the beard for a while. And I was like, I'm not feeling it anymore. So,
yeah. You talked earlier and just mentioned it again about, having a mission and having high motivation. That's what I really heard, is that there's a disconnect between, I think that there's an imbalance. If you get somebody that's been in that scenario, mission driven, highly motivated, and you put them out where there's no structure, there's no mission, then there's this imbalance of, who they really are at their essence and who they've been in that. So, I really listen to these stories and intuitively understand that, it's hard to come out and think a certain way and operate a certain way when no one else around you operates like that. Right. Like, I'm assuming that that's what you see a lot of and deal with, where, from how people talk to each other, in the military versus, how things are, if there's something to get done, it gets done, and how it gets done is different than what happens in civilian life, Yeah,
there's a huge difference. And unfortunately, what happens is we were trained to go into the military, but we weren't trained to come out. So you get all this training. I mean, and it is high level stuff, especially like, for myself being aviation, I'm going to flight school for 1.5 years after all the other things I had to do before to get up to that point, going through survival training. And what happens is then you get to your unit, and your unit starts training you. So your company starts training you for the mission specific for them. And then you get out and you lose your mission and you never received your training. So you got to go find your mission, which is where that's where my company comes in. I want to help you find your mission. It is unique for you. It's not the same for every person. And then within that, you're going to regain your motivation. You're going to stop feeling like you're drifting. And you're going to move to an area of your life to where you really are excited again. And you're not feeling like you're short with people. And Anthony, what you're talking about is this difference from what the military taught us, which was imposed discipline versus self-discipline. It's so funny. You get out and you're like, oh, I'm going to be fine, man. I worked out all the time. And, I always had the right habits together. Some of us do, some of us don't. But you go out with some confidence. And that confidence starts getting taken away from you as you start seeing, well, the real world is way different. And there is no imposed discipline. Imposed discipline was a good thing. Like, you will exercise during these hours. You will do PT. You will train like this. Then you have to teach yourself self-discipline. So that's where training comes in. That's what I'm doing. Training people to learn how to pick up the self-discipline, find their mission, regain what I call the lost 5 C's that they lost when they got out. And it's a challenge, but I'll tell you what, that's one of the answers right there. Challenge. You got to put yourself in environments where there's a new challenge, and then you'll start creating another level of discipline.
Yeah. So what are these 5 C's?
Yeah, so the 5 C's. All right, let me write them down because I want to make sure I get them in order here. So the first one that everyone always knows right away, they say it so easily, is, man, I just feel like there's no camaraderie, right? So camaraderie is the first thing that we lost immediately when we got out. And we had these amazing relationships with people, and they kept going on in their direction. And now you're in a new town, you're living somewhere else. Think about it, you don't even know where you're from. Someone goes, where are you from? And you're like, well, I moved around so many times, I don't know how to answer that question. That's what it's like being military. So in this case, camaraderie is really key. And one way to build it that you can do right now, one thing you can do right now is you can find one person that you can start being a companion to. Okay, so I teach how to build camaraderie in my program. I teach how to find a battle buddy, find someone that's not just going to hold you accountable, but that's actually in the same fight as you. So camaraderie is one. Another one is challenges. So I talked to you about challenges already. You know, you're put in these environments that are challenging. You're put in training that's challenging. And all of a sudden you leave that and you start drifting because you don't have that anymore. Like, the world's challenging. Let's be honest. This is a challenging thing, but you got to compress it. You know, we got to condense it. Another one is community. So you have community because you show up into a unit, you show up to a company, maybe even higher than that. There's higher headquarters than that, right? And it just, there's a whole community for you. There's a whole world designed for you right now. There are relationships, there are family members who are part of the unit. When you go to work, the family's not engaged in a civilian job. Everyone's doing their own thing, right? But imagine when, you know, you really do know someone's wife, you do know someone's husband, you know their kids. That's a community. That's not just camaraderie, that's a community now. So how do you get that back? And one thing you can do right now for this, and this is going to take a little bit longer, you got to figure out your new AO, your area of operations. You have an AO, you have an area of operations. I can look outside my house right now and I see it. I see people who live near me. I feel that I'm responsible to help them. I'm responsible to invite them. You know, one of our family values, the Jones family values, is inviting. And it sounds so simple, but we just always look at ourselves and we're like, man, did we invite that person? Could we have invited that person to something? You know, and we want our daughter to create community by inviting others. So that's one as well. So we're at 3 now. Okay. Do you have any questions on the first 3?
No.
Okay. All right. Next one is coaching. So you have coaching in the military, believe it or not, and now you don't have a coach. You got out. See, what I'm doing to help right now is to give you words to how you feel, I hope. Right? I hope that this is helping because what I needed was the words of what is going on. There's so much I'm missing. I don't know what it is. And when we can package it up like this, we can learn how to create it again. You're probably not going to find it. You're going to have to go create it. Or you can join us and we'll help you create that. So coaching, you always had someone who's looking out for you. Not just a battle buddy, but you had someone who's training you. And it wasn't the company commander, okay? It was the next level leader who's right next to you right now, who, you know, you would be following in that person's footsteps. They were coaching you. They were refining you. They were a mentor. They were, seriously, Anthony, they teach you about life, not just military. I mean, we're not a bunch of robots in the military, not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, they're teaching about life and how to pay your bills and, you know, what you should be doing to build a better relationship at home. And, you know, hey, are you taking care of yourself, right? Okay. And the last one, and believe it or not, these are the core 5 C's. There's a couple other things people lost, but the next one is codependency. And I don't think people think about that enough. When we served, we were allowed to be dependent on others. We were supposed to be. People think there's this high level of independence. No, there's a high level of codependence where we really counted on one another and we expected it from both sides. I expect that you're going to look out for me and I'm going to look out for you. And when you think about codependency, now you're in a civilian world where people really aren't as connected. You're living in COVID where people really are. It's a whole new level of a challenge. And you don't even know who you can say, hey, man, I got your back. You can count on me whenever you need me. And they look at you and you know they think the same thing. It's gone.
Yeah, I think that last one, because, you know, there's so much individuality. I think it's a value to be independent. Right? Like, you know, it's funny because you see certain leaders get criticized for relying upon their team and like enrolling their team into the mission. And it's like, from a leadership and organizational perspective, it's like, that's what it's all about. I think that's one of the challenges, like running an online business, when you're getting started, is that it's pretty much you, right? And like, I grew up in sports and, there's a lot of crossover there, but, especially team sports, you're relying upon people. After college, I played rugby, and that's like moving like chaos that it's kind of organized, right? And, you're relying upon the next person next to you to do their job, and it's not about being the one or the hero, right? And, organizational efficiency and leadership and all that stuff has to do with codependence. And I appreciate you for saying it like that, because I know growing up, my mom had a book she read and was like talking to me when I was young about codependence no more, of how that is a bad thing in a relationship. And it's interesting perspective to see the other side, the benefits of codependence.
Yeah, there really is this interesting balance between the two. When you learn how to fly a Blackhawk, there's a thing called counter pressure, right? If you put too much left pedal in, we're going to start spinning in the wrong direction. So we got to put a little left, little right. We got to counter pressure. So I want people to think about that today in these areas that we talked about. Where can you put some counter pressure? Where are you're putting too much pedal in? You're gonna start spinning out of control because you're giving it too much attention on the wrong side of it, right? And it's not like there's a wrong and a right. Yes, there definitely is wrong and right to the world. But in this example of codependency, how can you find a little bit of that while also helping people build their strength and their independence? Number one lesson I learned as a business owner. I've been in business for 8 years, not just through Mountain Movers, through other businesses. I've always been working as an entrepreneur while being in the military. How did I do it? I don't know, man. Long nights, Then I have a wife and a daughter, and life changes. Had the wife for a long time, but our daughter's only almost 2, so
kids are different, right?
Yeah. So that's when changes needed to be made. But I will just say the number one lesson I learned as a business owner is don't do for others what they should do for themselves. You will make them weaker. And if you want strong team members, you cannot do their work for them. You have to allow them to be a little bit slower and to maybe not get the best results initially, because in the long run, when you think with a long-term mindset, you're going to build a stronger organization.
Yeah. And, I've part of a program called Wake Up Warrior. One of their main, let's say code of conduct is I'm a leader, not a savior, and, you have to lead people and not save and do the stuff for them. And sometimes it seems easier, but it hurts in the long run to do that. So, well, awesome, man. A couple other things is like, what are some lessons from the cockpit that you've learned, that can apply to running a business, taking on a mission, especially if someone has to compress time and get a lot done in a short period of time. And a lot of people, have pivoted their businesses, especially, this year. So, what are some lessons in there that we can learn? You can share with us.
Yeah, I have quite a few, but the one that stands out for that specific question, in terms of you are working on compressing time and you need to start condensing, right? You need to get more done with less time. You need to be really clear. And it's funny, I'm going to go back to the beginning of how we started, but once you know your mission, you know your loadout. Okay, so in this case, if we're talking about an aircraft, a Black Hawk, I know the max gross weight is 22,500 pounds. Now, it could change depending on, specification within the aircraft, but I know the limitation. I think what happens with us is we don't recognize our limitations. We think we can just put it all on us, and we can just keep loading up our aircraft, our body, right, our mind, our time, our calendar, and we think busy is better, and it is not. I don't like when people say they're busy. Okay, when my clients talk about being busy, we address that, because busy, that just means you're just holding a hover. You're staying in the same position, possibly. You can be really busy holding a hover and pulling all your power and using all the different controls to keep the aircraft in this perfect spot, but you're not moving forward, right? To move forward, it actually requires less power. People don't understand that. Sometimes when you just start moving forward and you realize what you need in your life and you only take what you need, you'll gain performance. So I know I'm teasing at it a little bit because it's a deep lesson. I mean, this takes me, this is a teaching that I teach in my 5-week coaching program to help people with this. But in summary, what I would say is you need to know your loadout. I want to go back to that. 22,500 pounds. I know my limitation. Now I know, well, how much power do I need to play with? In other words, how much room do I need in my schedule to be able to fill up and use for other things and flex? And how much do I actually need to take with me right now? So if I know I'm going to go do a fire mission, right? Fires are going on right now. That's something we do is we fight the fires with the aircraft. So if I know I'm going on a fire mission, I got to figure out who do I need in my aircraft? Who's going to be properly trained? What equipment do I need? Because guess what? When I go pick up that water, it is going to take almost all my power available. What I mean by that is in an aircraft, especially a Black Hawk, you have a range. I'm just going to make it simple for the group, but a range from 0 to 100%. Okay, you have 0 to 100%. 100% power is all you got. And look, for any aviation enthusiasts on here, I know there's different numbers to it, but let's keep it simple. So 0 to 100%. Let's say you're at 60%. Just to take off. Then you go pick up that water, and now you're already at 80%. You only have 20% left in your margin when you really need to pull more power. The aircraft is limited, and I think we got to start recognizing that we are limited. We need strong team players, team members around us. We need to only take what we need on the mission. So in that example, the fire mission, you got to prepare for fire. There's certain things I don't need to bring with me right now. Maybe I don't need to bring a hoist rescue. Maybe I don't need to bring a litter. Like, you just start thinking through, what do I actually need? So when we're helping a client, it is all about figuring out, what do you need first? So if you're gonna build a company, what do you need first? Do you need to learn how to build a course? Or does that just sound like a golden carrot that someone's dangling for you, a shiny object that you want to go get? You just think it's cool to go get a course. Do you need a website? No, you don't. You definitely don't need a website to start a business. You got to get organized with all this. And the only way to do that is through coaching. It's through someone who's been there before, who can actually say, someone like Anthony who can say, hey, look, that's a waste of time. It's going to waste your money. It's going to waste your energy. You only have so much power available.
Yeah. I mean, talk about this is capacity, right? What's your current capacity? You're limited. Your results are limited by your current capacity. And, your capacity, for me, in my mind, in business, it makes up the time that you have, the talent you have, the team that you have, and the technology that you have. Like, you need to increase either one of those to increase your capacity. So, a little bit more on, you said something about this, early on when you started talking about this, the capacity issue. I think that's one of the things that I'd like, especially walking away, anybody who's in entrepreneurship and who's invested in personal development, like, there's an element that, you need to get better. But I think the downside to personal development is it takes the focus off getting, your team enrolled, and it's so much of like, how much more can I do? Because, I think there's some guilt in there. I've experienced it. I can see it in others that they need to get better. But it really takes the focus off of like, how do you organizationally and, really get this to move instead of having it dependent upon you, because your capacity is going to be limited. You only have 22,500 pounds to lift, You're going to go take down the fire. You're going to need more resources than just one person. So, I think that's, if anybody walk away from today, one of the things I'd like them to remember is that true things get done. Amazon was built by a massive team. It wasn't just Jeff Bezos, So,
yeah, that's good, man. Yeah. You can't push a rope, right? You can't push a rope. You can pull a rope. So as a leader, we can set the pace. We can set the example. You can do things, Anthony, like you're talking about, where you're investing in your personal growth and you're showing how important that is, and your team will realize, wow, if it's important to the CEO, it probably should be important to me too.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Tell me, let's kind of start to wrap up and let's talk, is there anything else you want to discuss or close out or anything like that?
Okay. So the one thing I always feel that I need to remind people on is, I'm going to go biblical for a second. Is that okay, Anthony?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. All right, man. So one thing that we learn about with fear is we're always thinking of something maybe we're uncomfortable with doing, right? It's out of our comfort zone, which is where we feel this sense of fear. And I just want you to think about one of the most fearful things you can do is to lead a group of 100 and have one go astray and go with them, right? One person needs you right now and they get lost. Is your team ready to lead that 99 without you? See, what Jesus tells us is that he leaves the 99 for the one. It's like a common sense no-brainer to him that wouldn't you leave the 99 for the one? And I think so many of us, we go, no, let the one go, let the one go. And the truth of this is, well, look, if you built leaders, if you built an organization that's going to continue on, that knows your voice, you should be able to leave the 99 for the one to go be with that one when they need you most. I just want you to think about that today. Have you left the 99 for the one? I think that's the scariest thing we can all do. It's the most intimidating thing is to say, well, this is my comfort zone. This is what's working. These are the people I like to be around, even though I know that person needs me.
Yeah. And if you haven't, you realize that you haven't done your job 100%, right? You haven't built an organization. You haven't built leaders that can, be cross-functional. And if you have to step out, then, they can't step up, and you need to look at that. But also there's that cliche saying, right? You're only strong as your weakest link. Yep. And, I think more than anything is, how I can see really success. And what I've done in the past is kind of build something and then fix the next thing that's broken, right? And address the weakest link, right? It might be in it might be in how your actually business operating system. It might be in your market. It might be somewhere, right? And, if you could just build the system and the playbook to move forward and then, allow people to take the lead and then you go fix it. That's how you build a business.
That's so good. Yep. Exactly, man.
Well, awesome, man. How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so for anyone who's on the podcast, if you're listening right now or if you're on with us on StreamYard, I want to open up my schedule to you. And the reason is I can't help you unless I know you. Sure, there's courses and things like that. But to be honest, what's more important is that someone actually gets to know you. They can figure out where you are in your life, figure out a little bit of, is there a misalignment to a mission that you thought you were following and it's not the right thing? So I'm going to open up my schedule, and I have no idea what this might do to it, but I just want to trust it. I think Anthony's built a great group, and you guys all must have amazing credibility to be here. So if you go to calendly.com/mountain movers, MTNMVRS/discovery, you can schedule a 15-minute free call with me. We can get to know each other, and we can figure out if maybe you have a team that is just underperforming right now and needs some work. Or if you're, a solopreneur and you just need some guidance, you need to start figuring out how do you get your life properly aligned. So that's one way. And you can always go to Facebook too. We can give them that link as well.
Awesome, man. I'll put some more links to how to get a hold of you as well, along with that link in the show notes. And then, I appreciate you being on, and, maybe we'll do it again.
Awesome, man. Thank you, Anthony. It's been great being with everyone.
This concludes another episode of the Be Battle Ready podcast. If you're looking to put it all together across all the areas of your life and be battle ready, come get connected with powerful leaders in our Be Battle Ready Facebook group, where we will be dropping new battles to win each day.